Well, thanks for your interest in Romac software. In this video, I'd like to take a few minutes to introduce you to the Romac Series 7 estimating program. Romac Estimating will allow you to enter a material takeoff for an estimate. It will calculate the weights, the surface area, material cost, and shop labor. To get started with a new project, just click the New Project button and give it an estimate number. And that will bring up what we call the title screen. We'll put in a sample job as a project name. You can fill out in your own estimate the location of customer, remarks, bid date, etc. For shop labor, we have three options. The first option is to not enter anything for shop labor. You can use whatever method that you want to calculate your shop labor, whether it be hours per ton or whatever. The second method is to enter the manual labor for each line item. That can be hours each or hours per ton. Also, if you choose manual labor, you can skip labor for any of the items. The third option is what we call Type 3 labor, and that uses labor codes, essentially telling what has to be done to the item. Romac will calculate the shop labor based on your labor code entry, the size of the material, and so on. We've got different labor codes. For instance, for a beam, the first letter would be a B, which indicates that it's a beam. The second entry would be the degree of punch. The third character would be the number of copes or cuts, and the fourth character would be the number of standard end connections. For instance, with a beam, if you put in an entry for the standard end connections, Romac will calculate material for the end connections. It will also count the number of field bolts and shop bolts if you're using shop bolted connections. As you can see, Romac has 8 basic labor codes: beam, columns, angle brace, plain material, fitted piece, main material, stiffener, and end plate. You can also use manual labor, hours each or hours per ton if you choose the Type 3 shop labor, or you can leave that entry blank. Field labor allows you to put in hours for field erection. You can have up to 24 different shop finishes. For the default finish, you would put in the finish that is the most prevalent for the job. For this estimate, we'll put an S for shop standard paint. As you go through an estimate, if you have items that are galvanized or have a different finish, you can use one of the other finish codes. The default specifications are the material spec an item will default to. You can specify different material specifications for each group, such as a wide flange, channels, plates, angles, bars, pipes, etc. And then whenever you're entering your takeoff, if that material is the default specification, you can just skip past that. But if it is something different, you can change it for each individual line item. Extra fields. If you check the Use Remark box, then you'll be prompted to enter a remark for each line. If you use the Type 3 labor, then you'll have some labor defaults to enter. The type of connections, how the connections are connected in the shop, whether they're welded or bolted, the material spec for the connections, the shop bolt size, and field bolt size. Add clean and paint to manual labor. If you put in hours each or hours per ton, this asks if you want to have Romac calculate cleaning and painting for that item, and then how do you clean the material? Do you do hand cleaning or machine blasting? And then this designates how you weld your stiffeners, whether it be by manual or automatic method. This just gives you a little bit different value for your weld. Romac also has special items for pieces that don't fall into normal steel sections, such as angles, plates, beams, etc., when you run into those on your estimate. And this just asks if we need to put in a weight for those items. Romac can make weights optional for the special items and the bolts, or you can require weights for each special item or bolt. You can have up to 6 bid items for an estimate. For this demo estimate, we'll use just one bid item. Now we'll start to enter a material takeoff. The first item in an estimate is always going to be a title entry. Romac forces you to put in the title entry. That allows you to segregate your takeoff into different areas, like floor framing, roof framing, columns, stairs, handrails, etc. So to put in a title entry, just put in TI for title in your quantity field and then add a description. And then we'll start to put in the actual material for the estimate. You'll see that it's broken down into quantity, description, length, material specification, finish, and weight unit. We have a materials database that is used to automatically look up the material, weight unit, and the surface area. You would also enter the shop labor for each line item if you choose either manual labor or type 3 labor. We'll enter an item here. In the description, we'll enter a shape and a size. For instance, a W10 by 22. Romac has several shapes to choose from: wide flange, angles, plates, bars, rods, pipe, tube, bolts, and special items. You could make an entry just for labor. For instance, if you needed to build a truss and needed to put in labor to build a jig or something. You can also put in welding, so many feet of welding to calculate labor on. If an item can require fractions, such as an angle or plate description or even a length, Romac features redefined fraction shortcut keys to make it easier. So rather than typing in the fraction or decimal equivalent, you can just use the redefined fraction keys, and you can see those here. For instance, a W would be 1/16, E would be 1/8, R would be 3/16, and etc. So you can enter fractions down to a 1/16 of an inch by using the redefined fraction shortcut keys. For instance, if you wanted to use the redefined fraction key for the length of 1/2, you'd just press O, and it automatically brings up the 1/2, saving you lots of time. The material specification defaults to the different material as specified in your default specification you set up. And if you need to change it, you can do that here. If this item is the default finish, then you can just hit Tab or Enter, and it will apply the default finish here. If it is for something different for this item, then you can enter the letter code for that item. For instance, if this item was galvanized, then you would put the letter G for galvanizing. The weight unit looks up the weight for each item in the materials database. For the shop labor, you could put in something like B for a beam, 1 degree of punch, 4 copes and cuts, and 2 standard end connections, and that will figure the fabrication labor for that beam. Romac will also automatically figure 2 standard end connections. It will figure field bolts for the connections and will also figure shop bolts if you specified that the labor method was shop bolting. To put in an angle, L 3.5 by 3.5 by 5/16, 9 3/4 inches, A36, standard finish, and let's say you wanted to put in 0.4 hours for each of those, so we can put 0.4 in there. A plate would be PL, then space, 3/8 by 12 inches, 1 foot 2.5 inch long, A36, standard finish. We didn't put any labor for the plate, so you can skip that if you want to. So that'll show you how easy it is to enter items in the material takeoff. We'll exit there and go on with the demo. Once you get all of your material takeoff entered into Romac, then you can generate or print process. The extended list is listed in the order that you put it in. It automatically does the calculations. You have the option to print the weights, surface areas, material cost, shop labor, field labor if you specified field labor for the estimate, and then subtotals. And subtotals would be based on titles. A cost worksheet summarizes your weights of the various materials, finishes, etc. It allows you to work up a quote for the estimate. A sorted list just groups like pieces together. you get the same weight, surface areas, etc. that you specified for the extended listing. The size summary summarizes your estimate by material size and also includes a summary of your cost. And if you're using specific lengths of material that you're pricing from, it will show you how it nested the material. A shape summary just breaks down your estimate by shapes, wide flanges, channels, etc. The finish summary will break it down by finish, such as different types of paint, no paint items, galvanized, and includes the weights and surface areas of those pieces. The labor analysis. Labor tables can be set up to specify how much for cutting of the material, punching the material, fitting, welding, cleaning, painting, as many different types of shop operations that you would want to include in your shop labor. We suggest that you install some type of PDF printer. You can print directly to your printer or to PDF files if you just want to view the estimate on your computer screen. Under Tools, we have a couple of items to show you. You can choose to export the material list to a comma-separated values file. That file can be opened with Excel or some other program which will allow you to fine-tune your estimate if desired. As you can see here, you can specify which fields you want it to include in the file. Another option is to import data. Romac Estimating can import KISS data files, which is a format used by several of the steel detailing programs. It can be imported directly into the estimate material list, so you don't have to key it in, saving you time, money, and to help eliminate errors. Romac can also import advanced bill of material text data from Design Data's SDS2 3D model. Under Maintenance, Romac has a materials database. You can easily add new shapes as they become available. You can also add material specifications. You can edit the finish tables and/or change finish descriptions and how they're cleaned or painted. That's related to the Type 3 shop labor. You can set up cost tables, so much per pound, or you can put in specific links that are available, price them, and then if you specify that table when you process your estimate, Romac will nest from those links. As you can see in this table, Romac has 40-foot, 50-foot, and 60-foot lengths. You can put in prices, in this case per pound. Depending on the material, you could set it up per lineal foot, per square foot, or per each. And if there's not a unit price and therefore a specific length, then that means that length is not available for that size beam. The no nest is what it would price from if it could not nest. For instance, if you had a 70-foot piece on the estimate and your longest available piece was only 60 foot, then it couldn't nest your 70 from your 60, so it would apply this no nest value. We also have labor tables for Type 3 shop calculations. Romac has standard shop operations like cut, holes, fit, weld, clean, and paint, but you can add up to about 10 or 12 custom shop operations as needed. Well, that's pretty much it. As you can see, Romac Estimating is easy to learn, easy to use, and can save you tons of time and money in generating accurate estimates. Again, thank you for taking the time to view this quick demo video. If you need additional information or have any questions, please contact us. We would love to help you decide whether Romac Estimating is a fit for you and your operation.